Good morning. I am Bill Rawlings, Chair of the California Workforce Pathways Joint Advisory Committee for 2023. Thank you all for joining us today. Due to the pandemic, today's meeting is being conducted virtually. I ask for everyone's patience as we navigate through today's meeting. Today's meeting is being broadcast through a live webcast. Interested parties can view the broadcast by visiting the California Workforce Pathways webpage and clicking on the live webcast link located under the 2023 Public Meeting Notices, Agendas, and Minutes. A recording of the webcast will be archived at the California Workforce Pathways webpage in about a week. So I have the following announcements to ensure a smooth meeting. Please keep all microphones on mute. All attendance and motions will be taken by roll call. Committee members should use the raise hand feature in the live webcast to be recognized for providing a comment or question. And I'll ask for a public comment for each agenda item and again at the end of the meeting. Public comments can be made via the live webcast, email, or by phone, and all options are explained on the posted agenda. And so today we have just a few items to cover. First, very exciting, we will review and approve the California State Career Technical Education Plan, and then we will conclude today's meeting with an update on the CTE state initiatives, the CTE incentive grant, and the K-12 Strong Workforce Program data metrics, which is going to be important for later on this year as well. So we have to have a quorum to continue, and since this is a virtual meeting, staff, will you take the roll call?
Yep, just give me 1 second, Chair Rawlings. Okay, Chair Rawlings.
Present.
Member Escobedo.
Present.
Member Grande.
Here.
Member McQuillan.
Here.
Member Rodriguez.
Here.
And Member Williams. All right, so we have 5 of our 6 committee members.
All right, so it looks like we have a quorum. It is now 9:04 a.m., so I will call the meeting to order. And before we move to the first agenda item, I'm going to ask staff to announce the staff members who are supporting this meeting remotely.
Okay, so we have from the California Department of Education, myself, Pete Callis, Division Director of the Career and College Transition Division, Colby Franklin, Education Administrator, Tara Nielsen, Education Program Consultant, and Rachel Moran, Staff Services Manager. From the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office, we have LaCandace Ochoa. And from the State Board staff, we have Lisa Constancio, Aileen Allison Zarea, and Laura Rodriguez.
All right. So with that, and thank you all who are supporting us remotely. With that, we'll move on to item number 1, which is the approval of our preliminary report of action. So I'd like to seek the approval of the preliminary report of action and draft minutes for our November 29th, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion?
I will make that motion. This is Member Grande.
Member Grande. Is there a second?
Second.
I got a second by Escobedo. I think he beat Member Rodriguez. And so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or correction on these from committee members? All right. Are there any public comments on this item?
We don't see any public comments on this item at this point.
All right, then let's call the roll.
Okay. Chair Rawlings.
Yes.
Member Escobedo.
Yes.
Member Grande.
Yes.
Member McQuillan.
Yes.
Member Rodriguez.
Yes.
And I do not see Member Williams yet, so.
All right. I believe Member Williams wasn't going to be able to make it today, so well, let's keep an eye out for him just in case he hops on. So that motion passes. So the approved report of action minutes for the November 29th, 2022 meeting and the recording of today's broadcast will be available on the California Workforce Pathways webpage. So that takes us to item number 2, which is going to be the bulk of our meeting today. This is the update on the final draft of the California State Plan for CTE, and it's going to be presented by the Jobs for the Future staff. So I would like to welcome Daniel Trujillo, Associate Director from Jobs for the Future, and Pete Callis, Director of the Career and College Transition Division, to guide the committee through the final draft of the California State Plan for Career Technical Education.
Thank you, Chair Rollins. I'll kick things off and then turn it over to Pete. Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel. Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm really excited to be here and to be able to provide an update along with Pete on the California State Plan for CTE. I will begin today by providing an overview of the project and timeline and reviewing the structure of the plan itself. I will say a little bit about the public comment process we undertook, and then turn it over to Pete to say a little bit more about the feedback we received, the subsequent updates that have been made, and the next steps for the project upon approval of the plan. Next slide, please. So to provide a recap, we began this project by engaging interest holders and conducting background research to build a shared understanding of the context and background for the work, also to identify best practices and lessons learned in California and nationally, and to engage interest holders across the state. This included virtual focus groups with a wide range of interest holder groups from across sectors and geographies in California. We also conducted study sessions for this committee through these meetings, bringing in perspectives from across the country to explore what has changed, what is working, what lies ahead as education and workforce systems evolve with the changing world of work, and how can we be responsive to the needs of employers and students' careers, goals, and aspirations. We also explored bold and visionary ideas and drivers of transformation and change for an equitable future of work and CTE. Based on all of these inputs in phase 1 and the feedback and guidance from this committee, we have since been engaged in an iterative process for drafting the California State Plan for CTE. We have presented multiple drafts of the plan to this committee for further guidance and feedback. We engaged in a public comment process for public review and input. And now we have analyzed all of the feedback and inputs to date and are excited to be able to share the latest draft of the plan. Upon approval of the plan, we envision launching the state plan through a process that builds awareness among key interest holders across the state and paves the way for successful regional implementation. Pete will share a little bit more about this next phase of our work later in our presentation today. And finally, and certainly not least, the last phase of this project includes developing a set of metrics for the state plan so that we are able to measure progress and results achieved. Next slide, please. In terms of its structure, the California State Plan for CTE is organized as a strategic plan. It sets a bold vision. There are key priorities and themes, short-term goals and strategies, long-term areas of focus, and a call to action for achieving California's aims for student success and meeting employers' future workforce needs. To say a little bit about what's in the plan, I'm sure you've all seen it already, but the plan seeks to improve equity, access, and outcomes across the state's diverse geography and diversity of student and worker populations. It also sets a course to align and strengthen current efforts and build on previous efforts to improve and leverage CTE. While the plan is a strategic and visionary plan, the next phase of this project will focus on implementation. It will explore more concretely what state, regional, and local actors can do to drive toward the goals of the plan and strengthen what they're already doing. Next slide, please. The draft of the plan being presented today reflects the feedback we've received through a public review and comment process, as well as all of those inputs I described earlier. This public review and public comment process included multiple email announcements of feedback opportunities a 45-day public comment period, and a web page available to the public to review the draft plan and submit written comments to CDE via email. During the last meeting of this committee, emerging themes from an early analysis of these public comments were shared, and this committee also provided further guidance and feedback during that meeting. Since then, we've reviewed the public comments, all of your feedback, and have updated the plan. I will turn it over to Pete to say a little bit more about the public comments we received, as well as the updates to the plan and next steps. Pete?
Great, thank you, Daniel. So as we went through the public comments that we received, and we talked about I presented the themes at our last CWPJAC meeting, and this is just more of a narrower view of what we received as themes and concerns that we had with the plan. And really, we've really tried to establish this plan as a regional guidance document. And some of the comments that we received were great comments. We understand their passion for the work they're doing with CTE in the field. But the focus of the plan wasn't on, funding sources. We understand we have teacher shortages. We all want to work together on teacher shortages and creating those pipelines to have more CTE teachers working at our school sites. We just need to come up with alternative ways of getting folks from the field to come in and receive their credential. And so they're able to teach CTE courses. There was comments that we received about funding streams, and we didn't want this plan focusing on funding streams because funding streams are through statute and legislative language and through the federal funding that we have through Perkins. So this was more about looking at the big picture in a region and what their needs are for CTE. Data collection was another piece, which we will do data collection with this plan. Barriers to work-based learning. Right now we're dealing with one of the major barriers that we received in legislation last year, which is the fingerprinting requirement that was put out last year for work-based learning programs. And we've been working with legislative staff to come up with a remedy on that requirement. CTE teacher credentialing. We need to have and work on flexibility, but that cannot be a main focus of this plan. This plan, again, is to assist regions with their needs and developing their programs. Dual enrollment program build out was another one that was brought to our attention during public comment. We actually have a dual enrollment initiative right now that was rolled out in the 2022-23 budget for $200 million for the next 7 years to expand dual enrollment programs. So that's happening. And then supports for all student pops. We in CTE really do a great job with being inclusive of all student populations. The last two pieces of themes for public comments were providing support for student leadership program development in the CTSOs. And I believe we already do that in most of our local plans. And having a CTSO is a local decision. It's not going to be a requirement of this state plan. And then opportunities for career in college. I visited some school sites this week down in Coachella Valley, and they're doing an amazing job with providing opportunities. So what we need to do is look at models. And how do we look at those models and build them into our entire implementation plan moving forward for this for the state CTE plan. Updates, modifications that we made to the plan. So we really did a lot of cleanup on formatting and structure of the plan. We removed some language with negative connotations. That was some of the feedback that we received within the body of the plan. And then we restructured some of the statements to make them more general so they could be generalized for statewide implementation and regional implementation. So other than that, those were the edits that we've made to the plan since the last one we presented, along with the last one already had the CWPJAC committee members' comments included in the update. So we have next steps coming up. We want to publish and announce the California State Plan for CTE. We want to support regional implementation of the California State Plan for CTE. So part of this is we will be presenting it to the Board of Governors for the California Community Colleges, and we will also be presenting it to the State Board of Education for K-12 and as information items, because we want them to be updated and aware of what we're doing with our state plan for CTE. Daniel, any other follow-up comments?
Nothing to add. Thanks, Pete.
Okay.
All righty. Nice and concise there. So I'm going to open it up for member comments. So members, go ahead and raise your hand. I do just have one quick note. It's more grammatical than anything, maybe. Is on page 12 of the draft that we have. There is the acronym for work-based learning, and I don't see it addressed that way anywhere else on the document. So just consistency. I was just going to note that. And then the only other question I was going to have, mostly for Pete, was going to be, we have some of these models that might set good examples or best practices. And I would just note that I'd be interested in seeing some of those models discussed at future meetings and really dive into some of that a little bit more.
No, absolutely. I know that Member Williams had asked about paid student internships a number of times.
Right.
And those were some of the programs that I visited this week.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Yeah. So as we move forward, I'll look at seeing if we can get those added onto our agenda. That would be great.
Most definitely.
So other member comments, members of the committee, Member McQuillan.
Yes, thank you. And I want to thank the staff for this document and all the work, obtaining all that input, a lot of work. And thank you for the report and presentation on the document also. But I like what you just shared, Bill, about maybe doing a deeper dive into some of the examples given or the model programs given. I think that's a great idea. The one on Inland Empire, I really like one of the tools that they have there. I think they call it the equity continuum as a tool where LEAs can reflect on their own equity and access and the data that they have, all the way from space allocation to resources to staffing and participation. And it's a great tool to look at if one is bold enough to do it and jump in and do some self-reflection. I think it's a great example, and that's one that maybe we can do a deeper dive on and discuss as a committee. I really like that. And it does seem like the plan did grab a hold of the themes from throughout the whole state of California and incorporate those themes into the plan itself. I like that. And then the regional approach, I really like how it raises up the idea of, our regions throughout the state of California. We're very diverse. I'm way up here in rural California. I think we have a total population in our county of 30,000. And the plan being implemented up here will look much different than in other parts of the state of California. So I appreciate that part of the regional. So anyway, again, great job on the plan, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member McQuillan. You make some really great points there. Member Grande.
Thank you very much, Chair Rawlings. And I want to express my immense appreciation and gratitude for having this document, a final draft, in front of us today for consideration. It has been a long time coming, an incredible labor. I cannot begin to express how thankful I am to all of the efforts that went into drafting this plan. And I just have a couple of questions, and they were questions that I have posed previously regarding other items that we've had very similar to this. And if anyone can recall, I had questioned, the last time we had a state plan, what was the metric used to determine whether or not our goals and objectives were obtained? And I'm asking that again in contemplation of this draft plan. What matrices do we intend to use to accomplish some form of evaluative component of this particular plan to indicate that we have met our goals? And the second part of that is, in what timeline? So many times when we see maybe a corporate strategic plan or a facilities master plan, it normally covers a period of time, and it's indicative on the title of the plan, within the orientation or initial narrative of the plan. So I was just wondering, do we have those in place, or are they still under development? So the timeline for how long we anticipate this plan to take for us to have full implementation, and a method of assessment to see when we have achieved the areas that are outlined as goals and objectives.
So Daniel, do you want to, we can both address this, I think. As we expand out to do our work on implementation, that's when we will work on goals and objectives for each region, because they will have different goals and different measures, as Member McQuillan stated about his area. And so I think we will work on a tool for them to be able to develop their goals and measures, and then work with them on developing their timeline so they're measuring on a regular basis and measuring the success of their programs.
Yeah, I would add, the implementation may be multi-speed too, depending on the geography in the state and depending on the interest holders involved. So we envision sort of some regions moving a little bit quicker than others on implementation and reaching goals sort of at different paces. That being said, another phase of this plan is to develop those metrics that I think are being asked about, and we will develop those by being informed by what what regions are saying across the country. So through implementation support, we will learn a lot about where regions are, what makes sense in terms of an implementation timeline, and what makes sense as a measurable metric. And along what timeline?
Do we anticipate, as we move forward as the California Workforce Pathways Joint Advisory Committee, that on an annual basis, we might see updates or report outs on how the state is moving towards each of the goals and priorities that are listed within the state plan? And if so, is there an ultimate end goal for which we're saying in 3 years, in 10 years, so by say 2033, that we will see a completed plan and ready for the next plan to roll out?
So I think the way when we started working on this, and this was before I came on as division director, the focus on this was to have a plan that was more fluid, and that we could grow the plan and adjust the plan as we move forward. As we see our goals change, we can make those changes to the goals. And that really makes a lot of sense because of the way our industry sectors and their skill sets are changing so quickly now. In the past, we didn't have to update industry sector standards other than every 10 years. And now industry changes almost year to year for some industry. So I think we need to look at the plan in that way, that it's more fluid. And that's how we're developing our industry sector standards now.
Thank you so much. And thank you once again to all of the individuals that helped put this into a draft form and have it ready for presentation. I really, really am very appreciative.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Member Grande. And I will note that there's in the introductory area of the document, we actually refer to it as a living document, and it will need to be iterative for the very reasons that Pete had mentioned there. And I think as we go through this year, my personal goal will be, as we go and we do this exploration with the field, then that will really help us fine tune what we revise for this next coming year, and where we can tweak it, where we can add, and where we need to kind of have our hands off and let the regions kind of take the lead on their own. So I appreciate those questions. Member Rodriguez.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. And I'd also like to echo the comments that have been made by Member Grande and Member McQuillan regarding the gratitude for all of the work that has gone behind putting this together and the thoughtfulness. I also want to echo the comments that have been made, and especially appreciate the regional guidance, because, you know, as Member McQuillan said, he's in a 30,000 person county, where we are here close to the border, very close to Coachella. So I'd love to see what they're doing there, Mr. Callas. And the, you know, and our area is very unique as well. And so I'm excited to see how that's going to, how the guidance will play out and how it'll support the work that's being done to meet the different needs of the areas. And there was something else, the data collection and especially the accountability piece, because that is, you know, something that is essential, right, with all of the huge investment. And, you know, that we want to see that this investment is going into our students and our eventual workforce to continue making our state what is it now? We're the 5th largest economy in the world, I think, as of a few months ago, if I'm not mistaken. So also my gratitude to everyone who has done all of the heavy lifting with this document. And thank you to the people who participated in the public comments, because that is so important for the fine tuning, right, to meet the needs of our state. So thanks.
Thank you for that, Member Rodriguez. Our public comments always make us better. Member Escobedo.
Yes, I also appreciate all the work that's been done in this comprehensive plan. And I share my concerns that Pete brought out in the sense of staffing, is that the plan is as good as the teachers we have. And if we don't have the staffing, you know, be hard to implement this plan. So I was just wondering, sometime in the future, as you work with CTC, that if there's a way that maybe some promising students going through these regional centers can also get a teaching certificate to teach directly in these regional centers. In a way, you can almost generate a pool of future teachers, because our staffing issues is not temporary. I think it's going to happen for the next 5 to 10 years. Just something to consider, because I love the plan, but again, like Pete shared, you know, and I definitely understand his concern. Staffing is going to be critical. Thank you.
Right. And thank you, Member Escobedo. I think a focus on creating a pipeline, even if we have to create our own pipeline for teachers, is going to be pretty essential here. Are there any other comments from committee members? And Member Rodriguez, I see your hand still up. You don't have another question? Okay. Thank you for that. So if there are no other comments from the members, are there any public comments?
Good morning, everyone. Kyle Highland has his hand raised, and I will see if the system will let me. Hold on one second, sorry.
We're dealing with a technical issue. We're trying to unmute so we can get a public comment.
Change.
So once we're dealing with a change in our system in the building, we're switching over to voice over IP. And so that switched our phone numbers and changed things that we didn't know about. We have the correct number. I can give it out verbally right now, and people can call into that, and we can wait a couple minutes for the call in. So the dial-in number for public comment is area code 717 908 1926.
And that's the participant.
And then the participant code is 1166083. Again, the dial-in is 717 908 1926, and the participant code is 1166083. We apologize for the technical issues.
We do have one public comment in the Q&A if someone wanted to catch that for us.
Let me throw that one. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize for the issues we're having with technical difficulties. In the Q&A, we have a public comment from Mark Basnaji. It says, at the last California Workforce Pathways Joint Advisory Committee in November 2022, there were numerous public comments noting the lack of alignment between the draft plan and the state's climate ambitions. I note that none of this seems to have affected the final draft, nor is this even mentioned as a theme of public comment. This is a glaring omission in 2023. There's already good work happening on these fronts in California K-12 schools and community colleges and among other agencies, nonprofits, and other arms of the state government. Many of us are disappointed that this will not be represented in our CTE state plan for the next few years. The final draft turns CTE into a weak link on equitable green jobs, something that schools and industry will have to work around. And Kyle and Lance, you're the two public comments we're trying to get through on the new line. If you want to type in the Q&A, I can just read your public comment that way if that would be easier. I apologize again for the technical issues. Kyle, I see you on the call-in line. I will be unmuting you now. You may start your public comment.
Awesome. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We hear you.
Okay, perfect. All right. Good morning. Kyle Highland on behalf of the Career Technical Education Joint Powers Authority Coalition, which is an organization comprised of 15 CTEIG that delivers CTE to more than 60 school districts in California. And just, we really appreciate the robust public comment period. We submitted our perspective and recommendations via letter to the committee, provided our comments virtually during that period, and also met with Mr. Callis at that time. It was a really good conversation. And we're very much appreciative of the hard work that was done and the edits that have been made to the plan. One thing we think would still be prudent is for the plan to highlight who the CTE providers are in California. There's several CTE providers in the state, and we believe it's important that the plan acknowledges the various ways that CTE and work-based learning programs are administered. And the reason is, as CTEIG, we know that the ROCP model is often misunderstood by stakeholders, despite being an integral part of CTE for the past 4 decades. Perhaps this information could best be included maybe as part of the appendix of the plan, but we do think that information would be vital for all the regions to know who the providers are throughout the state. We look forward to seeing the implementation of the state plan and working with you on other CTE issues in the future. Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our public comments. Lance added in the Q&A, he said, hello, my name is Lance Gunderson with CTA. So that was, oh, there's more?
Okay, hold on. I got it. Okay. Hello again. Lance also says it is evident that we need to look closely at the teacher pipeline. Just pulling from industry will not be enough.
Okay, so that concludes, Chair Rawlings, that concludes public comment on this.
All right, thank you for that, and thank you for those public comments. It's always very helpful. And so with that, I'd like to seek approval for the California State Plan for Career Technical Education. Is there a motion?
I'll motion for approval.
Okay. Member Escobedo? I was expecting Member Grande on this one.
I was waiting.
Well, can I provide the second then?
There we go. Thank you, Member Grande, for the second. All right. And so there's a motion and a second on this. I believe with all the public comments taken that we are ready for the vote. So would you please call the roll?
Chair Rawlings?
Yes.
Member Escobedo?
Yes.
Member Grande?
Enthusiastic with my yes.
Member Rodriguez?
Yes.
And then Member Williams, who is absent. So.
All right, it looks like that passes. And so the approved state plan, California State Plan for Career Technical Education, and the recording of today's broadcast will be available on the California Workforce Pathways webpage. And I would note for Pete, I think somewhere along the lines here, having a reference to some of the stakeholders, whether it be on the webpage along with this, I think the more we can share out who our allies are in this and who are the practitioners would also be helpful. But the more we educate people, the more demystified this becomes, the more they can integrate it into the normal practices and hopefully funding models.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that takes us to item number 3, which is the update on the state plan. So I will welcome back Pete Callis, Director of the Career and College Transition Division, to update us on CTEIG, and Sandra Sanchez, Interim Vice Chancellor of Workforce and Economic Development Division, to talk about our K-12 Strong Workforce programs.
Great. Thank you, Chair Rawlings. We've actually got an update on presenters from the Chancellor's office. I've got.
Oh, great. Candace?
Sorry.
Linda Fan presenting.
Oh, there we go. Linda.
Yes.
Hello. All right.
Vice Chancellor Marty Alvarado is on representing the Chancellor's office in place of Sandra today. Sandra Sanchez had a family emergency that she had to deal with. And Dean Pham will be presenting with me on this item.
All right. So take it away.
So back in November, we presented on round 8A of the CTEIG allocations. We started out with $300 million available for funding. We had 383 total applications. Of the 383, we funded 375 of the applications. Their total ask based on their match was just over $398 million. And the allocations for round 8A went out just over $265 million. We decided to have a round 8B, and that's in process right now. It hasn't been approved by State Board for allocations yet, but the allocations will be going public this coming Monday. And so for round 8B, we had $34,427,653 available. We received a total of 10 applications. 4 of the applications are approved. And right now their total request is just over $4.6 million. Total allocations right now are at $2.4 million. We are reviewing one more application currently as part of this group. So we will have that decision made sometime today on that application. So we're close. We got more funding out this year than we did in previous years. And the piece of it, I know members have asked why, and it really comes down to the match. The 2-to-1 match makes it really difficult to get all of the funds out. So there's some new legislation rolling around right now. We hope will assist us with CTEIG in the future. But we did do around 8B, trying to get more of the funding out. And I will turn it over to Dean Pham for the K-12 SWP.
Thank you. Let's see. So thank you for having me today. So good morning, Chairs Rollins and members of the board. I am Linda Fan, Dean of the Workforce and Economic Development Divisions at the California Community College's Chancellor's Office. I'm here with Katie Gills, Program Specialist for K-12 Strong Workforce Program. And today I will briefly review the objectives of K-12 Strong Workforce Program known as SWP, and we'll update you on 3 areas. 1, the round 5 K-12 SWP application cycle and a brief review of the last 5 rounds of funding. 2nd, round 6 application cycle timeline. And lastly, an update on the key talent K-14 SWP technical assistant providers, refers as TAPs, and pathway coordinators, also called as PC. Next slide. Okay. To begin, I would like to review the objectives of the K-12 SWP. As a reminder to the members, K-12 SWP is a joint effort between the Chancellor's Office and the California Department of Education, designed to support intersegmental partnerships between local education agencies known as LEAs and California Community College to strengthen career technical education known as CTE. Programs and pathways aligns with regional workforce needs. This supports the California economic competitiveness driven by the strength of its regional economies and its skilled workforce in California commitments to invest in developing a skilled workforce to meet the state labor market needs and to ensure upward social and economic mobility for Californians. Additionally, K-12 SWP supports LEAs in developing and implementing high-quality K-14 CTE course sequences, programs, and pathways. Next slide. The K-12 SWP and the Career Technical Education Incentive Grant, known as CTEIG, are designed to strengthen CTE. CTE pathways and programs in grades kindergarten through 12 throughout the state. Both initiatives share the goal of educating K-12 students and leading them to post-secondary education, industry value degree, credentials, and certificates, and eventually to employment within the California's highly skilled workforce. By leveraging the strength of each initiative and positioning them as complementary programs, it becomes clear how K-12, SWP, and CTEIG together can purposefully enable the creation, improvements, and expansion of robust CTE opportunities for K-12 students throughout the state. The CTEIG program supports LEAs with ongoing, assured funding for maintaining and improving existing CTE pathways and programs aligned with high-quality standards. The K-12 SWP provides LEAs with startup-like investments for creating new and innovative CTE pathways, those building capacity to respond to shifting industry needs, as well as for scaling proven and effective CTE pathways. Together, these initiatives prepare students for high-wage employments in industries to meet regional labor market needs. Each initiative's application and selection process supports this vision. Participating schools for both programs are supported by key talents. So now I'm going to provide an update on K-12 SWP Round 5 Selection Committee. Next slide. As a reminder, the K-12 SWP legislation designates the selections and awarding of funds to the Regional Selection Committee. This model leverages the regional infrastructure supports by the Strong Workforce Funds. As a reminder, each regional consortium has a K-12 selection committee that is responsible for reviewing all applications requesting K-12 SWP funds within its region. The selection committee makes all decisions within its region related to selecting grant recipient and awarding specific funding amounts for each grant. Each regional consortium forms a K-12 selection committee made up of individuals with expertise in K-12, CTE, and workforce development. As for round 5, we had approximately 148 selection committee members participate in review and award process. The majority of round 5 members represents LEAs at 60%, followed by community college at 23%, business and industry at 11%, and other 8% workforce development board, nonprofit government office. The Chancellor's Office provides regional chairs and K-14 techno assistant providers with standard training materials, including agenda, celebration tools, and K-12 SWP resources. All selection committee members receive training on the intent of K-12 SWP, their region's priorities, scoring, and calibrating applications, and importance of remaining unbiased. Next slide, please. Our application submission window closed on October 15th of 2022. And for round 5, we received 330 applications across the state. 224 applications were awarded. In total, just over 211 million funds were requested from the available 150 million allocated amount. We received funding requests that exceeded the total available by 61 million. We believe that the number of applications dropped due to the numbers of factors, including schools were unable to expend prior year funds due to the pandemic. They had access to much more federal funds than in the past, and yet schools still find it difficult to meet the match requirements for this grant due to the application cycle overlapping with CTEIG. Next slide, please. In this slide, there is a breakdown by region. You will see the total number of applications submitted, projects awarded, amounts requested, and amounts awarded for each region. For example, as you look in the Bay Area, they received 48 applications and awarded 35 projects. Next slide, please. Let's look at the summary of K-12 SWP round 1 to 5. This chart shows the application we received from round 1 to 5, and it is a breakdown of the total amount requested. We have allocated $150 million every year, but as you can see, the requests have exceeded that amount. Next slide, please. This is a breakdown of all awards by 15 industry sectors and pathways for round 1 to 5. Next slide, please. And here's a summary of all awards for all 5 rounds with an amount of total investment distribution by sectors and pathways. Next slide. So let's move on to round 6 planning. Next slide. So as you can see, here is our proposed timeline for round 6. Again, we will launch the request for applications around mid-August. In October, applications are due in NOVA system and selection committee trainings will begin. In November, selection committee will review applications and submit nominations of proposed grantee to the chancellor's office. Around December, preliminary intent to award, announced, and appeals due to the SWP Regional Consortium. Then in January, Regional Consortia communicates intent to award and fund LEAs when round 6 project begins. Next slide. Now I will transition to an update of our key talent, 2-tier system of support. Let's go back to the previous slide, please. So many LEAs require significant guidance, professional development, and technical assistance to carry out their CTE plans and grants requirements successfully. To increase the number of new applicants and successful applications, we will rely on key talents that includes 1 statewide technical assistant providers, 8 regional K-14 technical assistant providers, and 72 K-12 pathway coordinators to expand outreach, especially targeting under-resourced LEAs, share valuable information to the regional labor market needs and employment opportunities, offer trainings on successful career pathways, effective grant writing, effective data collections, and supports LEAs to build relationships and critical partnerships with community, colleges, and local industries. The statewide TAP supports the ongoing professional development needs of the regional TAPs and PCs. We have spent the past few months engaging our key talent in various professional development activities, in data collection efforts, in providing technical assistance relating to both K-12, SWP, and CTEIG programs. Next slide, please. So these are the funded positions. K-14 technical assistant providers, they serve as a liaison between the 8 regional consortium and K-12 CTE stakeholders, facilitates the K-12 SWP grant application process, assume as advisory role for K-12 SWP selection committee, provide leadership for K-12 PCs, and assist with data collections to document implementation of CTE grants. Another funded position is K-12 pathway coordinators. They are the first point of contact for each of the 75 community college districts. They're housed at a local education agency, works with each of the secondary schools in the college service area, develop career pathways that leads to post-secondary education that meets SWP, CTE incentive grant, and Perkin metrics. Lastly, assess CTE pathways in place of each secondary schools. Next slide, please. As you can see, this is a breakdown of K-12 PCs by region. Currently, England Empire and North Far North both have 1 vacant positions. However, we are on track to fill these positions within the next couple of weeks. Next slide, please. This is a summary of work of the TAPs and PCs in addition to the work I mentioned before. Here are the key talents tier system of support. The Chancellor's Office utilized regional consortia chairs and K-14 TAPs to provide feedback on NOVA reporting as well as K-12 SWP funding process. K-14 TAPs meets with the K-12 SWP statewide TAP and the Chancellor's Office staff on a monthly basis. K-12 SWP statewide TAP facilitate professional developments for key talents on a monthly basis, as well as K-14 TAPs provide leaderships and technical assistance and meet regularly with the K-12 PCs in each region. Next slide, please. For the fiscal year 2022 and 23, the key talent participated in various professional development opportunities. As you can see on the left-hand side, professional development topics recently completed are career exploration, community college deep dive, CTE student organization, CTE requirements, faculty qualifications, K-12 SWP launch board. And on the right-hand side are the upcoming professional development topic schedules, K-14 career pathway mapping, work-based learning, funding opportunity leading to substantial CTE courses program, and using data for program development revisions. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentations and updates. Are there any questions?
All right. Members, any questions or comments on this? All right, Member McQuillan.
Yes, thank you, Linda, for the great presentation. You showed an earlier slide on the applicants funded versus those not funded. Can you elaborate on any themes that why folks were not funded, if you have or see any themes? Thank you.
I can take this. Hi, I'm Katie Gilks. I'm the program lead for K-12. Some of the themes that we saw were that LEAs had a difficult time reaching the match requirement. And so a lot of those applications, when they went through, were just not able to meet the minimums for the match. And so that became a difficult issue. And then there were some managerial structures with some of them. I think if they had a little bit more technical assistance, they could have reached that achievable score of 75 for an application, but in some areas, more of the rural areas, they weren't able to do that.
So I want to do a quick follow-up on that. So this has been a problem in the past. And it seemed to have gotten better. But I haven't seen the data on that to be sure. And I know we were going to put some focus on there and have some of those best practices kind of really communicated out more. So that remains something I want to pay attention to. Maybe we can get more information on that and dig a little deeper on it. And you know, I don't know, maybe Pete knows this as well. Hopefully you do as well. regarding the match, that has been a barrier for a little while, and I know we talked about advocating for like maybe softening the demands for that match. And is there any update or information on that you might be able to share?
We don't have an update on that. That's still on our, to-do list in terms of talking about the match requirement, because we know that's, a barrier for some of these applicants.
Yeah, and the reason I mentioned it, I mean, having a match is important just because we know that the agencies need to have some skin in the game on it. But if we have a high score, maybe for a plan, but they don't have the match, man, it would be great to award it somehow, because this really could be an important part of an economic engine that they're trying to create in their community, especially in these rural areas. That they might have a harder time coming up with a match, but they've got some great ideas, great plans that might be a good system-wide model. So I think, maybe there's I mean, this is all for the legislature, of course, but, if you go and you have a lower match, you need a higher score. I mean, some way to balance those two, because it would really be great to alleviate some of the burden, especially on these rural areas that might be more impacted by having smaller budgets.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Member McQuillan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Katie, for your response. You mentioned that some of the applicants that were not successful could use additional technical assistance. Is there a plan to, offer more of that assistance, and especially the rural areas that you mentioned? Thank you.
Yes, definitely. For round 6, we've been working with the TAPs to create a process to work with those rural areas. I know in the far north, they have instituted some of those processes to try to help assist those college or those LEAs that could be eligible. And so we'll work on that. It's helped a little. We see that we are getting more applications from these rural areas, and they are getting funded. Most of the funds were all distributed, and we had, more of a request than what we had available. So that's a good thing. But yes, definitely we'll be working on trying to provide that technical assistance to those areas in round 6.
And I noticed the pattern and the theme of that we tend to be not able to fund all the projects that are proposed, the plans that are proposed. And I noticed also there that by year the amounts have varied, some a little more, some a little less. When we have that information and we understand the kind of plans, who does that get communicated out to? And the reason I ask is, if there's a way we can incorporate that as part of a talking point when we do a budget change proposal or something like that for the next year, are we informing the right decision makers that might be able to influence increasing the funding, or how we might be able to address the shortfall in the plans?
Yeah, I know that VC Sanchez has been working to do that and bringing up some of those barriers that we're dealing with these applications. And we discussed it regionally with our regional consortia also to make them aware and, to understand, to get the word out about some of the barriers we see. I think the difficulty with the match is just the 2-to-1 for LEAs. That's been a struggle. So anything we can do to help alleviate that, whether we work with Department of Finance or the legislature to do that, I think that would probably increase the amount of applications that are available for funding and disperse more of it out.
Yeah, I agree on that. I think we really need to put an emphasis on making sure that those areas that have a solid plan aren't held back, where it might create this really economic mobility for folks out there. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the work that all you all are doing on that front.
Thank you.
Any other comments from members of the committee? All right, I don't see any there. So any public comment on this item? I know it looks like we have at least one.
I don't see any public comment. Lance Gunnarsson did do a Q&A. Oh, there he goes. He's raising his hand. We got the situation fixed with Zoom. So, Lance, I am muting you now.
I can talk. Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. I actually put that comment in partly by accident. I think it's somewhat relevant. So if you wanted to read it, that'd be great. It may not have been perfect for the conversation we're having here, but I did just want to say hi. And I, as a CTA representative, I'm here for comment and to serve in any way that I can. So I do think that we do have a little bit of concern at CTA with looking at the transfer of students from from our community colleges into 4-year, and that could be a little counterproductive to what we're attempting to do with career and technical education. I think that just has to be carefully approached. And that was my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lance. Good to hear you. All right. Any other public comment?
There appears to be no other public comment on this item.
All right. So with that will conclude the public comment period for agenda item number 4. And that brings us to item 5, which is general public comment. And so this is for the members of the public. If there are any public items public comments that are on a topic that are not on the agenda, this would be the time to make those. So I just ask that you keep your comments brief, and we limit those comments to 2 minutes. So are there any general public comment?
There's one from Lance. I will unmute him. And here he is.
Thanks again. I just wanted to follow up on the number 4 goal for the draft CTE plan, being to understand and evaluate our teacher shortage problem. It obviously is the largest issue we probably face in career technical education today. There are some great trials happening in some of our community colleges to try and actually get students who are enrolled in some area of career and technical education to get the training they need for that type of career, and also get a teaching credential from the same school. And that should be looked at real carefully. I think if we could replicate that throughout the state, we would really go a long way in helping solve that teacher shortage. I know there are some technicalities that have to be worked out with some of our CSUs, but that's something that I hope to put on your radar so that you can take a deep dive into that at some point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's helpful. And it's those are some of the plans I'd be interested in taking a look at. Are there any other public comments?
There are no other public comments on this item.
All right. So that concludes our general public comment period. Committee members, any other thoughts that you'd like to share? I think the only thing I would share is a deep gratitude, as others have mentioned, for the work on all these programs that we kind of help coordinate and align. There have been many staff that have worked on this, including those that have come before, the ones we have with us now. Same thing with the Joint Advisory Committee. I think of former members Rucker and former member Sun, and the amount of work they put into getting us where we could create a state plan. So that work is very much appreciated, as well as other Board of Governors members that have served prior to us. So it's been a lot of work. We're on the right path, it feels like. And I'm really looking forward to the work we have to go this year, particularly around discussing metrics that we may be able to recommend tweaks, changes to the legislature on later on this fall. So look forward to a very data-centered, hopefully, set of summer meetings for us, and a lot of great work coming up later on this year. Any other comments from members of the committee? All right, I do not see any. So just as wrapping up, our list of proposed dates coming up are the next one looks like March 10th at 9 a.m. I would ask Pete, I think at that point the emergency orders will have been lifted, so we'll be back in person. Is that correct on the next meeting? Or will we still be able to do virtual?
I believe the emergency orders were through June 30th, but we'll check.
Oh, good. Okay. So if that's the case, we may still be virtual on this one. All right. So I'd just like to thank everyone for a quick and super productive meeting. The next meeting, as I mentioned, is scheduled for Friday, March 10th at 9 a.m. And it is currently 10:13 a.m. and I am adjourning the meeting. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.